Now, I had a really nice YouTube comment about my video that I made about tape machines and recording to tape and that sort of thing. But the comment did have a slightly cautionary note at the start, and it was to do with my room. It said, I thought this demo was going to be, I think it was dumpster and laughable, which was absolutely brilliant. What a great expression. And then the rest of the comment was all compliments. There's all really nice things about my snare sound, so thank you very much. Now, I thought it prudent in the light of that comment to describe my room a little bit more and to give you an idea of its construction. My dad and I built this room. Its internal measurements are 5 meters by 3 meters. In fact, it's a little bit less than that with sort of the gear and the shelves and everything. So it really is a very small space. Now, at the moment, you're hearing my voice through my little tie-clip mic here. But I also have a pair of stereo ambient mics, which are just behind the camera, so that you can hear what this room sounds like with just me talking in sort of ambience. So if I switch this mic off, now you're hearing the ambient mics and not my tie-clip mic. I do all the mixing afterwards on the computer. So you're hearing only the ambient mics. So things like the slapback in this room is minimal, but it's still there. It's important when you're coming up with an idea for a studio not to think I've got to get rid of every single vice that room has, because there will be vices, and in fact some of those will be useful to you. I used to work at EMI Studios on Goldhawk Road in London back in the 1990s before it shut down. It was the Townhouse studio, and we had the Stone Room, which was the live room in Studio 2, I think. Yes, Studio 2. We refurbished Studio 2 as well at that time. Now, that's a piece of stone along the wall, and that is designed to get a brighter sound out of maybe some drums. Phil Collins' fill of in the air tonight, that was done in that room. Now, the reason that room was picked was somebody went, oh, we really like the drum sound in there, or we really like the acoustic guitar sound in this studio, or we really like the piano sound in that studio. So albums used to be recorded across many different studios. You know, take the tapes, put them on the machine, and you record that person in that room. This, of course, was in the day before, you know, really sophisticated impulse responses and reverbs that we've now got on the computer, which have helped enormously with realizing, you know, sort of complex rooms, or maybe rooms that are in a different continent. And that's fine. Now, this room here is basically made of 6 by 2, sorry, that's old school measurement, 150 by 50 timbers. And they are basically at about 300 centres. So the floor, the ceiling and the walls are all made of the same material. And on top of that, so you've got the timbers. In between that, we've got 6-inch Celotex insulation, and then blue plasterboard, which is Soundcheck plasterboard. And that's essentially the room construction. On the floor is plywood, a plywood floor. And then onto every surface of the room is thin but heavy-duty carpet. So the floors, the walls, and the ceiling, I opted for sort of 1970s Lieutenant Columbo brown. I thought it would be sort of fairly neutral. In fact, it's fairly horrible, but it does the job. Now, when I say it does the job, what it does is it damps big echoes in the room, but still gives me a little bit of a slapback. And I'm also getting that, of course, from all the gear that I've got stored in here. Really, I need another room to put all my gear in, so I've just got this as a recording space, but yeah, need to move house. I'm also a hoarder, as you can probably see. There's lots of stuff everywhere, but I use it all. Now, in the case of the YouTuber who made the comment about the snare drum, the snare drum I've got is a snare made by Noonan, Gary Noonan, 13-inch by 5.5 snare drum. It's just a snare drum in a room somewhere. And you like the sound. Great, that's fantastic. Other people may not like that particular snare sound. They might think, oh, I want it a bit deeper, or I want it in a bigger room. You name it. But the thing is, you know, if you listen to When the Levee Breaks, John Bonham, that drum break, that's recorded in a room with loads of echo in it. It sounds amazing. Now, I work in local studios where there are rooms dedicated to particular tasks. So the piano is sat in a nice, quite an airy, echoey room. That's what a piano is meant to sit in a room. The room acts as the amplifier for the piano. A harpsichord, if you were recording a harpsichord, you'd need to do it in a room that's got wooden walls, you know, and like a big stately home or something. That is a serious amplifier for that harpsichord, and that's why when you listen to a harpsichord recording of a baroque piece of music, it's actually quite echoey because it's sat in the room it should be in. Now, of course, a snare drum, should it be in a room? Should it be outside? Should it be in a big echoey space? Who knows? The choice is up to you. The choice really is yours, but to be aware of things like echo and slapback and how particular frequencies work in a room, that does actually, really help you to get the sound that you think that you want. You might not get exactly the sound you want, but that's half the fun. Actually going through the process, going through the motions. Now, I'm going to come behind that camera there. You can still hear my ambient mics, my direct mic. I've left the ambient mics on. So I'm going to come over here and just point you a little bit around the studio so that you can see what I've got to contend with when I record. So at the moment you can see sort of my multi-track machines up there, a record player, then down to a mixing desk. That one on the right there, that does my synthesizers, just mixes the synths. Then I've got my computer, you can see it's recording at the moment, an Atari monitor, yeah. See my video about the Atari, it's a very powerful bit of kit. And then we've got my sort of multi-track rack, that's a 16-channel machine, together with an old mixing desk. And then in the corner you can see a rack with reverbs and effects and stuff, and things like samplers. You've got a guitar rack here, there's loads of guitars. And then around here, there's a bit of storage space. I've got my old H&H amp. Yeah, love it, 70s loveliness. More storage space, and then my keyboard there. And then over here, I've got my PA, so when I store for gigs. So all of this has to fit in a room that is fairly small. But actually, what you can do with things like recordings, if you've got a drum recording, if you've got a noise that's happening in your room, like a buzzing or something, just throw a bit of cloth over it. Of course, that's going to affect the reflection of your high frequencies and your echo within the room. But if you have minimal echo, like there is in here, you can put things like reverbs on afterwards and that sort of thing. Now, it's very important, the location of this studio. This is well away from the road, it's well away from the neighbours, it's well away. Behind me is, a path, garden fence and then a path. So there's very little hanging about. So part of the reason for choosing this location was that I didn't have to go really, really mad with soundproofing, because that's where the expense comes. So if you can site it in a place away from, sounds, occasionally I hear a plane going overhead, I just start recording when it's gone. Yeah, that's fine. That's the sort of the trade-off. So everything that's in here, of course, reflects sound. So whenever I set my drum kit up, if I set it up in a different part of this room, I will get a different sound to that of another part of the room. But frankly, I don't go around the room with a snare drum bashing it to find the best sound. I set it up, I press record, I listen back and think, yeah, I like that, or maybe I don't like that, maybe it's a bit too close to here, and then I move it. Very often, people think that they can fix things in the mix, or, I will sort it out later, I'll put this on it or that on it. And actually, the front end, that being the instrument into the mic, the room, the instrument into the mic, into the recorder, that process of actually storing that audio file, which is essentially the front end, has to be as good as you can get it, because then it makes mixing really much, much easier. You don't have to deal with extraneous or external sounds that are just a pain in the neck. So there is my room, and to that YouTube user, I'm very glad you like my snare drum sound.